right, welcome back to Lockbox Lunatics. I'm Chad Kamp with my trusty cohort in crime, Steve Lambert. And we have a special guest today, Mr. Rick DeLuca. He's a regional owner of the Pacific West region. He's got 35 offices under him with about 800 agents. He's been in the business a little bit longer than Steve and myself combined, 49 years. He actually led a brokerage in Reno, had 192 agents or so, and they led agent production per agent in the real trends. So he's got a lot of wisdom for agents today. So welcome, Rick.
Yeah, welcome,
Nice to
Rick.
be here.
I think we can officially call him rockstar status is what we call that. We call that rockstar status.
Yeah.
Would you tell my wife that though?
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
Legend in the making. Legend has been made. Right on.
Happy to be here. Happy to be here.
Glad to have you, Rick. This is awesome.
Yeah, appreciate you joining us. So, one of the things that Steve and I do is we talk to different, mediums or to talk to different individuals. So whether it's buyers or sellers and or agents to kind of help them with their industry, right? So our target audience is very broad. If it has to do with real estate, that's kind of what we're doing is we just talk about real estate, whatever comes to mind. But you having the success that you've had over the last 49 years, we wanted to go ahead and target, agents that might be looking at the business or already in the business, looking at what they can do to possibly level up their game per se. I know we were talking about Steve's golf game, and definitely I need to level up my golf game. I mean, when you're shooting triple digits plus, there's a lot of room for improvement in the golf game, So anyway, so back to where I was heading with this before I got too sidetracked. What is a one common thing that you see? Let's start from a seasoned agent perspective,
Okay.
that they can look at and evaluate on, what they can do to help improve themselves, service their clients.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Maybe it's appropriate that I take 30 seconds and just a background.
Sure.
When I came into business, the market was really, really hot. And I sold, a lot of houses like everybody did because the phone just rang constantly. And then the market crashed 30 months into my career and I crashed with it. And so what I learned, and I've seen so many agents experience what I experienced, is that the worst part about a hot market, it creates horrible work habits. Yeah, and I got caught with that. And so I had to just reinvent my entire career. And so I guess when I look back and I see that, how come it worked? How come we had some success? I think that the two things I see agents do, experienced agents do that they might want to take a hard look at are two things. One, never, ever, ever, you can put as many evers together as you want to, but never, ever, ever forget the fact of where business actually comes from.
Mhm.
If you're going to start chasing business, which is what we do in real estate, we're just chasing, 7 days a week, we're chasing business. Before you begin to chase, you got to figure out where is it before you start chasing it. And the one statistic in my 49 years, it hasn't changed much at all. And the most recent one is where business comes from. And the most recent stat is 71.52% of the 4 million sales last year in this country came about as a result of relationships, just knowing people. Yeah, database, if you can call it all kinds of words, but if it's just relationships. So if over 2/3 of the business comes from that one source, what that means is every other method of lead generation, whether it be open houses, social media, running ads, park benches, I mean, you name it, everything in combined generates less than a third of our business. And so where I see a lot of experienced agents go astray is that they forget that very, very principle that this is where you need to maintain your focus. Just adding more relationships and strengthening the relationships you have. I know it's so boring that people don't even want to hear it, but it dismays me that people just they're spending all kinds of resources, time, energy, money, chasing business in all these other areas. When over 2/3 of it comes, it's just right there. And so that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned and I've seen experienced agents violate. The other one comes from sitting on superstar panels, and I'll never forget my first NAR superstar panel I sat on. I was the low producer on the panel, 2,000 people in Miami, Florida, and they're all talking about what they do to, generate their business. And I was probably on, geez, Chad, Steve, maybe it took me 3 or 4 panels I sat on before something finally dawned on me. And what I heard them saying, I went, oh my gosh, we need to ring the bell and get that message out there, because we just never hear this message. And it's this: the damage that big producers do to our industry, having been one, I know I cause damage, is that we give the impression that we do everything. We just do everything. When the truth is, what I heard from those panel members over the years was this: they do fewer things than most agents do, but the things they do them well, and they do them consistently. And
Right.
so when I heard that, it finally penetrated this thick skull. And I said, quit spreading yourself so thin, and just focus on the things that have the highest rate of return, and become really, really good at them, because every one of us can relate to this. I'm going to send something to my database every month. Okay. Most basic principle out there. And you do for a month or 2 months or maybe 3 months. And then all of a sudden, oh my God, it's been 2.5 months and I haven't sent anything. Every one of us are guilty of that.
Oh yeah.
Every single one of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Including me. And then finally, when you get tired of being guilty of that, you finally said, okay, I got to devise some kind of a system that prevents me from becoming my own enemy.
Yeah.
However you mechanically set it up. So those are two things that jump out right now for experienced agents.
So one of the things that I love is that you say that, creating that consistency and just tapping into your database and folks that and I appreciate this. And you and I had this, I think, an email exchange where I thanked you for, we're running a current contest, right, within the exit world from the Pacific West region. And some of those activities that is in the contest are just reaching out to your database. Right. And so as I lead my office, whoever's doing it, I don't ask my agents to do something I'm not wanting to do myself. And so during our meetings, we ask, hey, are you sending out your mobile business card? Because that was last week. This week, we're looking at our mobile smart sign. And we're talking about the engagement that we've received off of those texts. And so they're just kind of amazed at the responses. Even it was just a very simple text. Hey, I just redesigned my mobile business card. Let me look at that, take a look at it and let me know what you think. And the response that these individuals, in our database has given us is just an opportunity to open that dialogue and to start building that trust between us building that relationship between us and whoever is responding.
Yeah, it's interesting from my perspective, kind of coming up with this contest and launching it on August 1st. I got a text message last Saturday from an agent in Southern California, from Sean's office, and Jenny texts me, says, I've sent out 188 mobile business cards.
Oh wow.
And I got 2 buyers in the first 2 hours.
That's awesome.
And so here's something that it's so simple that once again, we never talk about it in this industry, and we ought to be beating the drum on this thing. And it's this: both of you are highly successful. You're really, really good at sales, and this, but we need to keep it not being a secret anymore. And we need to get the word out there. And it's this: no matter what industry you're involved in, if you're in sales, one of the realities of sales is this: the more places you put yourself, the more sales you make. That just one of the primary elements of success in sales is simply being in the right place at the right time. And so Jenny sent out 188 mobile business cards and got 2 leads within like 90 minutes.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I love what you brought up when you were talking about, because we're in a spot right now with experienced agents where the market's slower than it has been, right? I mean, you're hearing that a lot. Like, what do I do? What do I do? And I love what you were talking about when you said about your kind of their sphere, your relationships, and we're 71%, nearly 72% of all sales last year came from that. Because I was talking to an agent who just recently was really struggling, right? He was trying to do new homes and all that. And he said, Steve, I went back to the basics. I went back to my database and I went back to my sphere, and I've just been reaching out to them and re-engaging and and doing what I know how to do best, which is just talk to people. And you're so spot on with that right now, because that's so much what the industry is struggling with. Everybody's trying all these different lead generation ideas. They're trying all these different, magic elixirs, right? Everybody's got something to fix something. AI gets thrown into the mix, and everybody seems to try and be everywhere at the same time. And I love what you said about not spreading yourself too thin. Find one thing that you're really good at and stick with it. And I like how it's a powerful statement when you look at all the other lead generation pieces that are out there, only generating at the most 29% of other business or other sales, right? That's pretty fascinating. That's a great story of somebody sending out to their sphere 188 mobile business cards, just jogging people's memory, like, hey, I'm here. Because how many times do we hear a friend of ours sold a house? Oh, I forgot you were an agent, or I forgot you were this. Like you said, being the best kept secret, right, is not a good thing, whether you knew or experienced.
Yeah. Let me give you a tip for the people who might be listening to this. One of the challenges we have in calling, because we've all heard, you got to call your database, got to send them stuff, and we all, most people struggle with that. I stumbled across it years and years ago when I discovered, what makes it easy to reach out and make those calls. Like you, Chad, you just said that, you did the mobile business card this week. Next week, you're doing my smart sign, text code. And so people can look for properties, right? And so here's the approach. You send it to people, the mobile business card. You said, hey, I'm redesigning it. What input you might have? There's a reason to send it. Okay, that's the crux right there. You have to have a reason to send it for agents to actually feel like this is a legitimate reason for me to reach out. Well, when it comes to the smart sign things in your text code so people can look for properties anywhere in North America, what I did in my career, not having that kind of technology, but just reaching out with people, I would say things like this. A number of people have asked me how I might be able to help them just kind of look for properties on their own. And so I said, you know what, instead of just helping those people with that tool, I decided to tell everybody in my database, here's this tool that we have to go, to help you look for properties out there. And so what you hear me saying is that I give them the reason I'm sending the message out rather than just sending it. Right. A number of people have asked me for this, and so I figure, why not just share it with everybody? So I come across like I'm doing them a favor.
Yeah.
It's a place in place here. Maybe that, gosh, I haven't said this in many, many years. When I was 17 years old, born and raised in Southern California, 17 years old, I got drafted. It wasn't that good, but I played rookie ball, for a little bit. And I hit 432 as a catcher in high school and all-star of Southern California, Mr. Big Shot, right? And so I go to play rookie ball, the lowest level of baseball there is professionally. In my crowning glory was I struck out 3 times in one game, all 3 times with the bases loaded, and we lost by 1 run.
Oh, geez.
And so the next day, no surprise, the coach says, I want you here an hour before everybody else. And so I'm there. It's just him and me on the diamond. And he said, bring your ball bag, bring your bat. And so he says, get in the box, take your bat, here's how you do here. Here's how you hold your grip. Here's where your right foot. Here's the angle of your left foot. Here's where your right elbow is. And I'm going through this now. Obviously, I was off to a horrible start, but I just couldn't take it. I mean, probably 5 minutes. He's talking to me like I was 8 years old, and I literally, true story. I put the bat down and I said, I learned this stuff when I was 8. And he looked at me and goes, well, then why did you forget it?
Mm.
And I see that. And I see that in real estate agents.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. All the time.
We start doing something, we have some success, and we all want to grow. We all want to expand, and there's nothing wrong with that. But don't expand so much you leave behind what got you there in the first place.
Yeah.
And then you fall victim to what I said a few minutes ago, that then you start spreading yourself too thin. You're doing too many things, and you can't excel at everything. So you become mediocre at everything.
Right. Well, I think that's very problematic in our industry, right? We see that a lot. It's the shiny object, right? You have some success
Yeah.
and you decide to change everything you're doing to jump it to the next level instead of doubling back down on what got you there.
Right.
And I think that's really easy. There's a lot of things that distract us within our industry pretty consistently, right?
So as long as I've been around, the struggles of real estate agents has not really changed much. The tools have changed, but the industry hasn't really changed all that much. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. From day one, agents are reluctant to call people. I don't know what to say. Most of us are reluctant to call someone and come across like, hey, I'm calling you because I need business. And so
Right.
they just don't do it. And so, I made a habit of coming up with reasons to call people. And the ones that had the most impact on my career that I shared with my almost 200 agents was something like this. I would call people after I sold their listing or after the buyer went, I sold them the house and they're settled in now. And I called them within a day, 2 or 3 days at the most afterwards. And I said, I'm always looking for ways to increase the level of service I provide to people. I'm always looking for ways to just even get better. And with that in mind, our last sale of your home, is there anything that you can think of that perhaps I could have done that would have been even more valuable than what I did for you as the seller or the buyer? Is there anything at all that comes to mind that maybe that I could have done to raise the level of service? So you gotta be careful with your words because you don't want to come across like what mistakes did I make? You don't want to
Yeah.
go to that negative territory, right? But if you give them the rationale, I'm always looking for ways to raise the level of service I provide to buyers and sellers. And with that in mind, is there anything you might suggest? Is there something else I could have done? Is there something else that maybe I did that was of little value to you? And I'll tell you from many, 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 many of those phone calls I made in my career, over half the people have no response. They have no, all they say is, oh, gosh, no, you just did a great job. Well, you've accomplished something right there.
Yeah.
You've just strengthened the relationship. But the other half, they'll make recommendations. You know what I think might have really helped us because we're brand new to Reno. We hadn't been here. I know this sounds really basic. What would help us if we had a map? I remember Henry Edwards telling me
Yeah.
that. If I had a map so I could see where I'm going to work and then the houses you're showing me and where our kids would go to school, that would have been really helpful. And I'm going, why didn't I think of that? All right. And then you want to know how you get to the upper levels of success in this business? You take that simple idea right there, just that one simple idea, and they give you a suggestion and you make a note of it. And then you go into your calendar and you mark your calendar for 30 days from now. In 30 days now, you call them up and say, hey, Mr. Edwards, remember about a month ago, you suggested that I give a map to you? That would have been helpful. I want you to know I've worked with a couple of buyers now from out of the area, and I've made sure I've given them a map. So you're just strengthening that relationship.
Yeah.
I listened to what you said. I bothered to ask you and I listened and I took action everything's better as a result of it. So your better agents, they know how to take an idea and get more mileage out of it.
Yeah.
And
You know?
that's the thing that we're always looking for is to include our clients, our database, those that we know, and to our success. The more that you attribute your success to the individuals, and that you celebrate them
Right.
and appreciate them, and you really got to appreciate them because they're the source of our livelihood, right?
Yeah.
And if you
Mhm.
can't truly, acknowledge that to the individual that's giving you the idea, it's just simple from a human perspective. Folks want to be recognized when they do something good, even though they know or they think in their mind that they're not contributing. When you identify and you let them know that you value them and they're a huge contribution to helping you service individuals, they appreciate that and they'll remember that. And you're going to stick out in their mind whenever they hear someone say, hey, look, I'm thinking about buying or selling, because they will understand. They want people that they know to have that same level of appreciation as well. And so I think that's a very powerful statement, on that front.
It doesn't take much to impress people.
No.
I'm not sure if that's a sad commentary on our society, but it just doesn't. You know, I mean, I can't tell you how much money I made in this business because of something as simple as this. I was a big open house agent. Somebody comes in, we actually
Mhm.
strike up a conversation. We're getting along pretty good. And then she goes, "Oh, well, Larry, it's 2 o'clock. Our grandson, remember the soccer match is at 2:30. We gotta get out of here and get over there." And so now they're in a hurry and they leave. You know, so maybe I got their contact information. What you do to begin to create a relationship, I'll call them 2 days later. Say, "Hey, thanks again for coming by the open house. You know, hope you know, if you have any interest, let me know," or something like that. But you know what I was really calling for? How'd your grandson's soccer match turn out?
Mhm.
You know, and so when I met people and added them to my database, I would put the circumstances around how I met them in my database records. And so that I could, you know, 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road, I could say, "God, Kelly, can you believe it was 4 years ago in October that I met you at that open house over there on Miranda? God, remember that day? And as a matter of fact, you guys, you were going to a dinner that night. You had some special dinner, what it was. Man, you're talking about securing a relationship with people,
Yeah.
you know? So,
So
yeah.
we covered a lot of ground on tenured agents. What's one nugget if somebody's looking to get into the business right now with the market being what it's being, challenging? If there's one like golden nugget you could give to a newer agent stepping into the business day
Yeah.
one, what would you what would
It
it be?
goes back directly to what Chad said. The higher their confidence, the more success they have. So with that in mind, I coined a phrase during my career in my own company that I called, if you want to be successful as a business, which is even more pertinent today, you've got to become a student of the industry.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, one of the biggest changes in my era versus today, consumers today they expect us to be able to have a conversation about real estate nationwide,
Yeah.
not just in Tri Cities, Washington, or Bend, Oregon. They expect us to have an intelligent conversation about the real estate industry. What are interest rates going to do? You know, I heard it's a buyer's market. Oh, I heard it's a seller. I heard there's a shortage of inventory. They expect us to be able to have a conversation at a different level than most agents are equipped to have, quite frankly. And so if you're looking for a nugget, become a student of this industry. You know, subscribe to Keeping Current Matters. And you know, I mean, just sign up for some newsletters and be able to talk about the housing affordability index. Be able to say in 2025 right now, of all the buyers that have bought homes so far this year, only 24% are first-time home buyers. The lowest percentage ever recorded in our industry's history. Only
Mhm.
1 in 4 buyers are first-time home buyers because they're blocked out because of interest rates and increasing prices. So when you go into a listing presentation or you got the buyer in the backseat of your car, you need to be able to have a conversation, not a great depth, but to kind of convey that you are truly a student of the industry. And then back to Chad's first point, it does nothing more than raise their confidence level in your ability and gives you more trust.
100%. Yeah. And it shows them you're passionate about the
Yeah.
industry as well,
Yeah.
and it does. It exudes a lot of confidence to the
Yeah.
people with a large asset, and that's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they've got to be they're
Whoop, you froze, Chad.
hearing on the news, because that's one trap that these fall into, is they'll listen to the national media, and that's all they regurgitate. They don't really dive in, and that's one thing that I see agents mistake that they're making, is all they're doing is just regurgitating, reiterating what they heard on the news. And
Right.
to install that confidence in that consumer, you've got to be able to expand on that, and you need to be able to dive deep and tell them exactly how that impacts them. I had a conversation last night with an individual about interest rates, and with the Feds didn't recently drop the rate. They're talking about doing it in September, and how that translates and follows the bond market. And those are things that the consumer doesn't hear on the mainstream media. But
Mhm.
so we want to be mindful and appreciative of everyone's time. I know we're coming up on our time that we've allotted for this. Rick, I want to say thank you so much for giving so many good nuggets to us. And
Yeah.
your experience in the industry has helped me. So from a personal perspective, I just want to say thank you. I've known you for about 3 years now, and you've helped me grow. And so I appreciate that personally as well. So
And I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
100%. Same for me, Rick. We've grown a lot, and great leadership.
Yeah.
And for anybody that's that's checking this out and taking a look at it, we'll leave information on how to reach out to Rick as well. He's got a wealth of just a ton of knowledge. Like I said, super rock star status in the industry. Just this is just scratching the surface of what Rick, and what you've shared with us. And so appreciate your time on that. And hopefully, people that are in the business now and newer to the business can grab some information from this and enjoy some greater levels of success because of that.
Well, if I can help anybody, don't hesitate to reach out. And truly, I don't care what company you're with. If I can help you out, I'm happy to do that. And salute to both of you guys for even doing this, because this industry is in dire need, of ideas on how to raise the level of service we provide to people. Things have changed, and they're changing quickly, and so good for you for doing this.
Right on. Thank you.
well, we appreciate it. Thank you, listener, for tuning in. If you would like and share the episode, we'd appreciate it. Also, don't be afraid to put in the comments any topics that you'd like to hear in the future. Steve and I definitely would love to see your input. Again, thanks for coming on, Rick, and we'll catch everyone at next episode.